Hello, and welcome to Cinephiles, Episode 3. Today, we're talking about Legendary, but you know what the deal is, you know how it goes. Welcome to Cinephiles. This is the internet's number one John Cena film review program, and we are here, as always, to discuss the cinematic career of the Doctor of Thugonomics, the 16-time world champion, the best-selling author, the TV show host, the guy that said that thing that he probably shouldn't have said and then had to make an apology that he shouldn't have made, an overall sentient meme machine himself, John Cena. And yes, if you look down below, we are not agreeing with the man on some things today. But as always, I'm Henry T. Casey, coming to you from dreary Manhattan. It's a day outside, but it's a great day on Cinephiles. Mike, this is Mike Andronico. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, also making the best of this wet, sticky, gloomy day in New York. But you know what? It's a long weekend. It's a holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's my birthday weekend. And there's no way I would like to kick off my birthday festivities than talking about the 2010 film Legendary with my good buddy Henry. So a good start to what should be a very fun weekend.
If a cow were in this movie, I would say they would probably say it was legendary. Like it's that kind of a movie. Um,
Yeah.
so anything you want to say before we kick things off? Anything going on aside from your birthday? Just I'm thinking just jumping right into that.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. We I think just some funny background info on today's episode. I think it's pretty funny that this is the little behind the scenes on the making of how we make Cinephiles. This is the one movie you can't really stream or rent anywhere. So Henry and I both own physical copies of Legendary. I think we both got it on Amazon for like less than $5. So there's this actual physical. We own this movie physically. It is a relic of the previous decade. I also think we'll get into it, but it's amazing how like the main character of this movie is so obscured on the cover. He's like just a tiny fraction of
Yeah.
of what you actually see here. So that's pretty funny. And I think it's pretty hilarious that we own physical copies of this film and we both use our PS5 to watch it, um, which is just complete overkill, but
How
fun little tidbit. But
how janky did the DVD menu look on your TV? Because it was just so overly pixelated on mine. It just looked like it was trying to like it was something weird about it.
yeah, it looked okay for me, but for me it was more. I needed a few minutes to actually figure out the PS5's media controls, which is a whole other thing. But we did it. We made it through. So yes, this is Legendary, the 2010 film. As you can see on the box, starring Patricia Clarkson, John Cena, and Danny Glover. I forget the actor who plays Cal, who's effectively the main character. But yeah, some quick tidbits before we go through the
His
plot.
oh, by the way, his name is Devon Gray, spelled Devongraye. So you technically could call him Devon if you felt like it. Like the
All right.
spelling of the name allows for but he doesn't get any tables, so it's
Okay,
not.
so yeah, Devin Gray, who yes, definitely did not get the table in this film, but is notable for playing teenage Dexter in the TV series Dexter. But anyway, just some quick stats about this film. It has an approval rating of 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. But the audience score is in the 60s, a little higher. That's usually how it is. Unlike the previous films we've talked about so far, this was not a success in the box office. It did not crack the top 10 in its only weekend in wide release, and it finished with just over $200,000 in total revenue. So not a success at the box office. Definitely not a success just as a film.
And I was trying to remember, was it co-produced by a different studio? Because I remember typically the last two were all 20th Century Fox and WWE films. This is just Samuel Goldwyn Films is the distributor on this one, and they are a private indie with that is not a subsidiary of anything else. So although it was acquired by MGM in 1997, so this is now an Amazon movie, technically. So hopefully this movie will be streaming soon. But should you stream it is a better question. That's what we come here to answer every episode. And also, one thing about this movie that's interesting is let me find my notes. Um, when you're going through the opening credits, did any names stick out to you about the opening credits of the film?
Mm. I don't recall. I was more entranced by the actual narration, but what did you spot, Henry?
Music by James Allen Johnston. Um,
Hmm.
can you figure out whose other name? Who has it? Who if that name by another name? James Allen Johnston. Can you guess who that could be?
Oh no, I've got nothing. I'm stumped there.
Legendary WWF and WWE music producer himself, Jim
Ah,
Johnston, the pre
ah.
CFO dollar sign music god, which is weird because there's not many bops in this movie.
I was gonna say this is a very. We'll get into it as we go. Yeah, this movie is very heavy on like very '90s style alt rock, where it almost sounds like knockoffs of like Jane's Addiction and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park in different sections. There's a straight up Hustle Loyalty Respect song, which we'll get to. But yeah, the music, I won't say the music is good in this film, but I definitely noticed it because it was extremely of its time and of a WWE produced film. But you know what, Henry, walk me through the beginning of this film because it's
so
right off the
yeah,
gate. It's right off the gate. It kind of grabs you in a surprising way.
it's okay. First of all, WWE Films logo, Solemn Edition. Previously, it's the edgy edition of the logo, and you can tell that something's off because now this is a quiet morning.
Yeah, well, this isn't. Yeah, this is an art film, so they had
Yeah.
to tone it down.
Um, and Danny Glover is for some reason narrating the movie over sepia toned photos, telling you about the history of Oklahoma, the Sooner State, because the people there were too soon, as in they didn't follow the rules. And Mike, I got a question for you. If you had to think about the characters in this movie, how many of them are trying to approach life too soon or too quickly? Is there any one character in particular that you would apply that branding to? Because a character with the first letter L, I would sort of say, approaches
Yes.
life in the
Oh,
sooner mentality. And I'm not sure if
uh,
that was intentional, but when I
yeah, it's. I never thought of it that way, Henry. But yes, we'll talk about Lily or Luli, how it's written in the credits. But
well, no,
yes,
it's
if
Luli.
any,
They call her Luli, and it's short for Lourdes, Lourdes. I looked it up on, which I believe is Madonna's daughter's name, if I remember correctly. My in my useless celebrity lore. Um, but the narration from Danny Glover, he says, "My granddaddy was a Sooner, and Sooners were an ambitious bunch of independent survivors," and it's all hard scrabble as F A F. But that's sort of like a lot of the vibe about some of these characters. They are sort of surviving through stuff. We'll get to
yeah,
what that stuff is soon, or later. And then we briefly the camera pans over trophies in a high school trophy case. In 1973, Mac Chetley won a wrestling award. And then 1998, Mike Chetley won an award. And then we see somebody wrestling, and that person also likes fishes a lot because they're talking to fishes in a thing, and they're trying to get a suction pump working, and that's where the movie sort of really begins. Mike, what
yep,
what happens?
yeah. So here we meet our protagonist, Cal Chetley. Yeah, he's fishing for catfish. That's what he does. He's just out in the water, as Henry said, getting his pump ready, and he's kind of like I guess kind of the typical nerdy kid in appearance, at least in the beginning. And then to complement that, you've got kind of the typical group of Billies, sorry, double entendre, bullies walk by, and the main guy, the main jerk of the trio, Billy, played by Tyler Posey, who went on to he's now like a big heartthrob. I think he was on Teen Wolf, all that. Anyway, um, they see Cal struggling with this pump. They're like, right off the bat, amazing dialogue because Billy's like getting lucky, Cal, and Cal is just like, I don't know, is your mom here? So despite looking like a dork, Cal establishes right off the bat he's not taking any shit.
He has a
So
very like Spider-Man, like he has
yeah,
a comeback for everything, but
he's very Peter Parker. He doesn't care, and so
the
Billy
bully,
doesn't like that.
yeah, but the bully's sidekick. Did you write down what the bully's sidekick says after Cal says something about the bully's mom?
Yeah, she's like, oh, he says something insulting about Billy's mom. She's
Yeah,
like, oh,
the
maybe with
bullies.
her.
Yeah, with your mom. So gross.
Yeah,
Your mom. It was like an emphasis on like it, basically the bully's friend was calling the bully's mom gross. It was like a very odd,
yeah.
an
And so
odd.
obviously, yeah, Billy's like, "What the hell, man?" And Billy did not appreciate that remark, so he pushes Cal into the water. Cal takes a little dip, and then they walk away. They're like, "All right, it's not worth it. We're not gonna fight him." And then Cal pulls himself up, drying himself off. He's got a bit of a cut on the head, and then lo and behold, here comes the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the film, Mr. Danny Glover himself.
And he's just out of nowhere walks in, and he was looking to fish, and he was looking for catfish, and giving out some inspirational messages to our friend Cal. The bullies, when they leave, say "later, sucker," to Cal. Also, since Cal actually got blood on his forehead, and he's a very like earnest guy, I'm like, wait, is I had to look at I had to make sure this guy was actually named Devin Gray because a bloody earnest boy. I'm like, is this young Cody Rhodes in here? I was like, what is going on with this movie? But
He was gigging for real.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, Danny Glover's character wants to, and at some point we learned that this guy's name is Red. I think, like
Yeah.
that's what.
Or so we think, which we'll
Well,
get to.
it's one of his names.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they have an emotional conversation. Like I think Red is like sort of asking, what is he here for? What is he wanting to do? And trying to be encouraging. And you're just like, huh, this is weird. The narrator is now showing up in the film. I
Yeah,
wonder what
very
that means.
very very fourth wall breaking. But so yeah, we get a little back and forth between Red and Cal. We get to know them a little bit, and then eventually we're kind of back at the Chetley residence. Cal is there. Cal lives with his mom, Sharon Chetley, Patricia Clarkson, and we see Cal going through some newspaper clippings. We find out that Mac, who was this famous wrestler, was unfortunately killed in a car accident. He's reading the newspaper clippings, and there's a quote from a man. There's like a memorial quote from a man named Harry Newman talking about how great Mac was. So their dad was very beloved. We don't yet know where Mike. We don't quite know where Mike is. We know is that they're kind of estranged. And then we start getting some back and forth between Cal and Sharon, and
Because
yeah, it's a
Sharon wants to know what happened. Why is he bloody? He's not
yes, yeah.
explicitly bloody, but which one of them said the phrase "pop a cap in the butt"? Was that Sharon or
Okay.
Cal? Some of them, because like we learned that like Sharon works as some like we never get a full idea, but she's like working in law enforcement in some way. It sounds like, or she has a gun of some kind. Like
Yeah, she mentions that, and then yeah, there's some so yeah, we have that moment. Sharon's being the concerned mom. Right off the way, there's some like awkward. I don't know the way Cal and his mother interact. It feels weird and inappropriate at times. But we get hints of kind of Mike, where Mike fits in this picture and that he's gone.
he's
Uh,
on an oil
it-
rig somewhere,
yeah,
is
so
what Sharon
well,
says.
yeah, we'll get there in a sec. And then Cal's like, "Can we go to dinner?" Sharon's like, "Oh, can I bring someone?" And it turns out she's like has a date with the assistant DA or something. So Cal's like, "Never mind, I'm good. Call me when you get the actual DA." They're just kind of bantering. Um, then we get our first shot of Mike Chetley, and as far as as far as intro scenes for a John Cena character, this was a pretty memorable one, just because he's like at a construction site soldering, and he's wearing the ridiculous soldering mask, and you just see him take it off, and you're like, yeah, it's John Cena.
It's like a
Uh,
blue jumpsuit. It's very much like, oh, John Cena is here. Hello, John
he's
Cena.
as blue collar as he's ever been, even though he's been a cop in previous films. Like he's somehow even more blue collar here. But unfortunately, as soon as we meet him, we find out he's getting let go from his company because things are slowing down. They just don't need him right now.
That's the
So
second
that's
movie that John Cena gets fired in very early in the movie.
wow, yeah.
So that was how he started basically in thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, no, we are streaming. We are this is a stream about when men throw men at men, I guess you could say. But welcome. Hope you're doing well. Hope your day's going well. And yeah, but after he stands up, we basically jump right back practically to Cal and his mom, because they're on the phone talking, and she goes, "How's your day?" He goes, "My day sucks." Blah blah blah. She goes, "Don't say sucks." And then she is like, Cal's like, "So how's your date with the assistant ADA?" She goes, "It sucked." And it's very much like, this is a real mother and son conversation.
Very Lifetime movie. And then we realize that Cal's starting to show an interest in wrestling, which of course Mike and his father did. And eventually, we see him. He decides to kind of check out the gym and check out what the kids are doing. We get a little montage of what the wrestling scene is like at their high school in Oklahoma, and
And let's
so
be
that kind of
specific. This is amateur wrestling. This is like high school wrestling club.
yes,
Just because
yes,
when you think John Cena podcast talking about kids wrestling, no. This is the Riverdale Tornadoes, the high school wrestling team, and their motto is "You can't pin a tornado." And
it's true. You scientifically, physically can't.
nope. And then we cut to the forest.
Yes. Oh, the forest. God. So here's where we meet Luli, Cal's best friend, maybe more, but we'll get to that later. And yeah, we meet Luli, this younger girl. She's in the woods, surrounded by boys. They're basically asking her to show them some things, and then Cal sneaks up behind a tree and yells at the kids to leave them alone. We find out that she's basically getting money to expose herself.
Yeah. She had yelled, "Don't bunch up." That was how she. Well, the first words we hear from her is like she's trying to run a business here. She's trying to run an organized form of. It was the original OnlyFans, basically. Like they didn't really have smartphones back then. This is what she could do, and she had some cash in her hand for it. And then the boys are It was 4 boys, and they just go, "Whoa! That's how I knew it was gonna be." Like it's a very funny like.
It's and the Luli stuff only gets weirder as the film goes on.
Yep.
But anyway, Cal doesn't like that, so he yells at the kids to leave her alone. They get to talking, and he mentions that he wants to get into wrestling, join the amateur wrestling team. And this is one of many great comments from Luli. She's like, "Ooh, would you get to wear those little tight-fitting wrestling suits?" She's very excitedly.
And when he says yes, she says, "I'd watch you." Because she has a very that kind of voice. She's played by Madeline Martin, who you might remember as the younger daughter or the actual daughter on Californication. And Cal's first lines to her is, "Everyone knows you grew melons over the summer. You don't have to show them."
Yes.
And then she goes, "I got reasons." And she tells Cal, "What's there not to like?" She goes, "I got reasons, and they like him too." And Cal goes, "What's there not to like?" And then she immediately starts to and she goes, "No, don't do." Cal's like, "Don't do that." So he's trying to he's almost not into her at all, it seems like, and she's like aggressively pursuing him. So it's very much a weird, adorable kind of thing going on.
Yeah, it only evolves as we go on. So anyway, again, we know now that Cal's showing some interest in wrestling. We catch him weighing himself in his bedroom. He's hasn't hit the right weight yet. I think he needs to be in like the 135 range. Sharon catches him weighing himself. He somehow he finds a way to talk around it. I don't know if he brought up the wrestling thing yet. And then Sharon says something along the lines of like, "Oh, you won't catch me on that scale." He's like, "Mom, you got nothing to worry about." It was just like a sweet, corny moment. If maybe a little weird.
But when he says he's looking to join the wrestling team, Sharon immediately gets angry and talks about how wrestling ate Mac and Mike up. So wrestling is that one boss we don't tell people about from Resident Evil 8. Okay. But and when
she doesn't want what happened to them to happen to Cal.
But Cal is like, he almost gets into a fight with Billy the bully at practice, and Coach is like Coach Tennant. No, not like that Tennant. Coach Tennant goes, "What's wrong with you two?" And Billy says he's interested. He's got the hots for my mom. And then Coach Tennant goes, "Are you interested in Barrow's mother?" Cal goes, "No, sir, not at least with her clothes on."
And dude, I love Cal's, like, again, he doesn't take any shit. Like in that scene where they're going back and forth and being rough with each other, like, for it's Billy starts it, slams him down. The next time they grapple, Cal just straight up elbows him. And yeah, as Henry pointed out, he's not, he's got a sharp tongue. So even though he might be the typical nerdy kid, he's getting in there. He's wrestling. He's ready to throw hands at any time.
And this is where
It's
we learn
it's
that Cal listens to opera in his spare time. So
yes.
he has a very much like, okay, smartass, wants to fight, and he decompresses with opera. So he's a well balanced character.
He contains multitudes, and yeah, again, like, Sharon's giving him more of the spiel, saying like you should stick to all these other things you're good at, like geology and all the nerdy science things, and you know, we basically find out through their conversation that Cal wants to wants to meet Mike, wants to learn more about his dad through Mike. Sharon gives the typical like he'll only disappoint you. Cal's like, whose fault is that? There is a bit of tension here. They're kind of arguing a bit. Um, then Luli shows up
Yes,
to
she
their
does.
house, and how is she dressed at this moment in time, Henry?
It seems like she has all of the layers on at once. Like it's almost the Joey and Chandler bit from the episode where Joey wears all of Chandler's clothing at once, but she's
Yeah,
also wearing like cut off denim. Like this is that scene, right?
yeah, that's exactly. They're on the front
Yeah,
porch.
and Lily asks if Cal likes her outfit. And he basically says so, but he doesn't say so directly. He dances around confirmation. And Lily then kisses him on the side of the cheek and says, I'd like to see you wrestle. And it's the
It,
most serial killer ass tone. Like, it is like,
like Henry's not exaggerating. That's literally her inflection. Like she has all these little one-liners that are just incredibly creepy. Uh, if somehow slightly endearing at the same time. But yeah, that happened.
yeah, no, she has a duality.
Yeah.
And then Cal basically gets on a bus soon after this. He wants to go
Yes.
visit Mike, and you see a sign for three nearby towns: Porum, Warner, and Chicota. And I looked it up on the maps, and this places them basically south of Tulsa. And that's when I realized I have no idea what Oklahoma is like because I've never been. And I was wondering, have you ever been to the Oklahoma? So
I
yeah,
have not.
no idea what Tulsa's like. And this movie doesn't give us that much of an idea, but except for like a bar and a trailer and a school, and a warehouse.
It's just very like blue collar small town
Yeah,
America.
but a tired woman who has sort of those like raccoon style, like the eyeliner is sort of worn in around her eyes, answers the
Yep.
door of the trailer that Cal's going to, and she goes, "Who are you looking for?"
And Cal's there asking for Mike, so she lets him in. We have a great Henry knows exactly what we're talking about. Just the shot is amazing because Mike emerges in the dark, completely shirtless, jacked as all hell. Keep in mind this is 2010 John Cena, just an absolute monster, but looking very somber. Mike's not in a great spot. He's drinking a beer.
He's barely talking. Like this is like
Really, yeah, yeah.
we sort of get the full range of like brooding Cena to sort of normal Cena later in the movie, but like he's like barely talking. He goes and he basically tells Cal, "I don't think I can help you."
Yeah, yeah. The funniest, like Mike's like, I'm just really busy right now, which we know isn't true. We know he got laid off and he's just in a rough place. But he tells Cal like, yeah, you don't really. And Cal's like, maybe we could just visit, be friends. And Mike's very much like, no, I don't think you'll want that. And while that's going on, Sharon goes to talk to the coach. She tries to convince the coach that Cal doesn't want to wrestle. And the coach kind of knows. He kind of sniffs that
He
he
came
sniffs
here.
yeah, he sniffs out that that's bullshit, and he's like, if you try to stop him, then you just have a whole other problem. And coach just kind of promises to watch his back, and yeah, then we eventually get back to Cal and Red at the lake, and it's time for another pep talk.
And he's basically asking because also coach agrees. He promises to bench Cal if Cal gets out of control.
Hmm.
Because Sharon's like trying to intimate that she knows what happened with her son and her husband, her late husband.
Yeah,
But the coach says that, and that makes me think that's going to happen. Spoiler alert: it doesn't really happen. Um,
Yes.
but Cal goes. He's at the catfish fishing hole again, and if you looked up on IMDb to figure out what the character's name was, you'd get spoiled. But Red asks Cal to share some of those heavy thoughts he's carrying. What does he tell him?
Oh gosh, I
No,
don't.
no, there's barely nothing told. It's very much like he's dancing around it, but he admits that he wants to wrestle, but like he's just, you ever try to get somewhere that you're trying, it's the most
Yeah,
nothing
it's
dialogue ever.
yeah. You're ever trying to get somewhere that feels like you can't go,
Yeah,
and then Red kind of relates. He's like I wanted to be a Western movie star and ride off into the sunset with a girl like John Wayne. So they're kind of
what stopped you, Red?
what did stop Red?
I couldn't ride a horse.
There you go. Classic Danny Glover with his classic wit. Probably
Right.
the best performance in the film, just by virtue of it being Danny Glover.
Except, although in terms of the script, yeah, but in terms of the script, interestingly enough, the guy who plays Cal noted that his favorite character in the script was Luli, in one of the extra deleted content scenes that you special features.
Interesting.
His favorite character was Luli. Um,
I mean, she does have quite a bit of development in this film.
um, I thought she said that happened before the film started. That's not good to say.
Yeah.
But basically, but there's somebody gets injured on the high school wrestling team in the
Yes.
135 weight class, 135 pound weight class, and that gives Cal an opportunity. So
Yes. Yep.
it's time for a weigh-in, and we've seen a lot of weigh-ins lately, and this was better than the weigh-in I watched last night. I gotta give them credit over at Legendary Wrestling. Like, this was a very simple, like a little bit of intimidation.
Mhm.
And then before you know it, Louie's in the crowd cheering for Cal, and you know that because even when the camera doesn't show her, the microphone picking up Madeline Kahn's voice is audibly upped for her versus the rest of the room. And Sharon's a little late for the meet, but she's still able to be there for Cal's match. And how does Cal do?
Oh, he gets his ass absolutely whooped. It does not go well for him. He gets pinned down pretty quick. In my notes, I have that some sick 2000s TRL alt rock is playing, just some straight butt rock. It's worth noting that before this happened, Cal tried to get in touch with Mike. A different woman picked up the phone than last time, and she's, he tries to tell her like, "Hey, can you just tell Mike I'm wrestling Friday night if he could come?" Yeah,
Cal
but
addressed her by the other woman's name. She goes, "Oh, this isn't." Good
yes,
job, kid. Good job.
They're painting a very specific picture of Mike here. But yeah, so yeah, this is Cal's first match. So typical sports movie fashion, he gets absolutely wrecked. Does not go well for him. We cut to Mike beating up a punching bag, and then
He's got a really tight beanie hat on. Like, he's like, this is like the second or third Smash Brothers skin of Mike Chetley. Like, this is very particular. But even after Cal loses, his coach is encouraging. But Mike, but when Mike's lady friend has to go, she says, "Oh, your brother Cal called. He said he was going to be wrestling." And then Mike reacts subtly and emotionally, but not that much. And then we cut back to Sharon and Cal talking. And
yes,
here, Mike, I think you want to handle this part, don't you?
Yeah, this is this is one of the many great Lily scenes. Well, the scenes regarding Lily. So Sharon and Cal are talking. Cal's trying to insist that like she's not his girlfriend. Sharon's like, does she know that? And then they kind of we learn more about Lily. He mentions that her mom's not really in the picture. She's got 4 brothers, so she doesn't really have a real female mother, maternal figure in the picture. So Sharon's like, okay, maybe one of these days I'll go talk to her, give her some girl time. We see that Cal's still losing in wrestling. I think we get a cut of another match, and then a pretty pivotal scene coming up. Mike's out at the bar, just playing pool, having a good time, and just calmly asks this large meathead man to move out of the way. And the big dude does not like that. And what happens next, Henry?
The big bald bearded man in my notes, asks do we have a problem?" to Mike Chetley, and then a fight ensues, and Mike basically treats him like he's Ethan Winters and he's Lady Dimitrescu. Um, he gets Mike smashes this dude's head on the table like multiple times, and
It's not, I mean, it's not much of a fight.
no,
It's more Mike dodges a punch,
but
breaks the dude's face.
this is a moment, sort of like a down part of the movie, because Cal had just asked he said to his coach or his mom, "It can't get much worse," and then we had a montage of Cal losing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then also, so after Mike gets into this fight, it's the next morning, and Cal's hanging out with his friend who barely appears in the movie ever, and only seems to appear as like somebody for Cal to talk to who isn't Luli. And he's not really giving him like a pep talk or anything. He's just sort of being honest with him. Yeah, that was sort of not going well. And the bullies show up, and they like laugh, and we didn't know your brother was in jail, and they throw something at Cal, and then
Yeah, no, that's how Mike finds out that's how Cal finds out that Mike was arrested for assault, and
either Cal or his friend goes, "I didn't know Barrow could read." Again, the repartee. We watch these movies, so you don't have to. You might if you want, but I'm not sure where this is going to end on our rating scale. But then that's how Cal learns that Mike is in jail, and again, we're talking with Red, if I'm correct.
Yeah, no, I didn't take too many notes here, but Cal and Red are kind of having their usual being fishing bros, and Cal's kind of catching him up on what's happening. And then, Red gives him some good words of advice. He's like, a month ago, you didn't know a wrestling mat from a bath mat. So he's like, yeah, he's like, of course you're losing. Like, you're just starting. He's being a good coach. It's almost like he knows a thing or two about wrestling. Who knows?
And he goes, "I know something about brothers. I had 8 of them." And it's like, okay.
So he's trying to relate, trying to help Cal out.
It was really
so
great.
Of course,
sorry, it was really great that he said I had 8 of them, because so far in this movie, Red is the only non-white person in the entire movie. So if he had said I know something about brothers and he's the only black guy in the movie, it would have been a little awkward. So it's really good that they said he has 8 brothers.
I was worried that's where it was going. Fortunately, it did not.
Yeah.
But Cal decides that he's gonna go to the courthouse, go to Mike's trial, and try to set things right. So of course Sharon doesn't know that he made up a whole plan. I think he's basically gonna run away. Lily's kind of covering for him. So Lily's kind of helping Mike get his attire together. She's like, "Oh, I feel like we're eloping," even though Mike's just escaping by himself. Sorry, Cal.
Yeah.
Getting the brothers mixed up.
It feels like we're eloping, except you're not coming.
Yeah. And she's like, "At least kiss me goodbye." And then he kisses her on the cheek, and she says, "I'll be collecting too. Next time it won't be on the cheek." And yeah, so
the aggressive horniness of Luli is like it's threading a needle here, because honestly, the precocious young kid character really has to. You can't go too far with that without it getting a little weird.
It's I mean, so she knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to say it, and then give this film some incredibly hoarding energy in the process. But Cal eventually shows up to the courthouse. It's kind of says some words in defense of his brother, saying how Mike taught him so much, so that Cal's usually there to stop him from getting in trouble, and just saying that, like, I need my brother. Which this was actually a sad scene, because Cal's like kind of making stuff up just to save his brother, because they haven't really had a relationship for all this time.
And we learn his full name is Calvin Chetley, so that's a really great little bit of character development. But yeah, he lies straight up in court. But the good thing is he wasn't under oath. I was like, I thought about it for a second. I'm like, oh, the judge just let him give testimony without making him swear in a Bible. Okay, that's how things work.
And Mike gets let off, and all he says to Cal outside the courthouse is, "Are you hungry?" And Cal's like, "Yes, I'm starving." So that was kind of his invite to come home and hang out with them. There's some pretty good dialogue here, like, Mike's going through the fridge. He's like, "What do you want?" And Cal's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's just been so long." He's like, "No, I meant to eat." And yeah, Mike's just kind of explaining, trying to explain kind of why he's been the way he's been. He's basically said he's kind of the past 8 years have been kind of a blur from him, and things have been kind of rough since Dad passed away.
And he also gives Cal a bowl of like an entire Tupperware of meat, like for
Yes.
bulking, basically. Like that's when he says he's hungry. It's like, oh, what do you have to eat? He just hands him like this like cold sliced steak, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like a meal. Yeah, it's literally just a bowl of meat.
And then Sharon is trying to figure out what's going on because she goes to Luli and she's like, "So where is I'm not gonna try to do that." She's like, but she knows that Luli's lying because Luli is a bad liar. She keeps looking away to think about what the lie is gonna be. She doesn't even have anything
Mm-hmm.
prepared. Um, and Luli tries to. She's like, "I can't tell you the truth, or else I'm gonna break a promise."
Yep.
And it's
So
very yeah.
yeah, she's being the yeah, she's being the protective best friend, but she does say like, one thing I know about Cal, he'll be all right. Sharon says, come by sometimes, maybe we'll do some girl things. And then yeah, so Cal's just kind of catching Mike up on his life. Eventually Mike realizes what's up and he's like, "Do you want me to teach you how to wrestle?" Cal's being meek about it for a few seconds. He's like, "Oh, yes, please teach me how to wrestle, please." And this is where the movie starts to become a lot more enjoyable because we start getting a bunch of training montages.
But when Mike offers to train him, Cal goes, "You got a lot going on, though." To remind Mike that he lied earlier.
Yeah, of
But he
course.
just says it wholesomely enough to like he believed it, which that's a good liar versus a bad liar. But Mike brings Cal to church, as it's called, which is an empty warehouse, and that's where he's going to train him psychology and also
Yeah,
other things.
yeah. So yeah, it's a great montage. We got some heavy alt rock in the background. We see Mike toss a ball at Cal and he knocks it back, and he's telling him, he's like, you got to work your mind, your body. We got to do all this, and so eventually, Cal's back at the gym, back with his team. Apparently, he must have missed a match doing all this, when he was retrieving Mike. Billy's there trying to talk shit, and the coach is basically like, I give all my guys one chance to get it right. Yeah, he's like, you have one more chance. There's also just a funny, as a quick funny aside of like another kid shows up late and he's like, a watch, get one. Like he's just yelling. It's just one of those random throwaway lines I thought was pretty funny.
They're trying to prove that this is actually a team and it's actually taking place in a school because so much of the movie seems like everybody in the entire thing is revolving around Cal. And we'll get to some of
Yeah.
that later in a moment where I was just sort of laughing pretty loudly.
Yep.
But there's like bonding and like Cal even gets Mike a job.
That was a really sweet scene. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I could get you a job on the rigs with some of my old geology guys, and yeah, Mike's very taken aback, and he's like, is that okay? He's like, yeah. He's just, I'm not used to getting that kind of help, and that tugged at the heartstrings a little bit. Um, and then so yeah, they have a sweet moment. Then we cut to Cal and Luli at school, and he's like, he's in full training mode. So Henry knows what I'm about to say. Probably the best line of the whole film. So Cal grabs Luli's bag and he's like running up the stairs, running up and down the stairs to get his cardio up, and then and then just immediately Luli's like, "Nice hiney."
Speaking of heinies, Mom wants you to stop by. Your mom wants
And
to see my hiney?
just all time, like I don't know how this actress didn't win awards for this film, but yeah, I remember because this is the second time we watched this movie in person the first time. I remember all of us looking at each other like just in total disbelief. Um,
But
but yeah,
Cal and Mike are back in the same room again. We cut back to because now it's time to talk psychology. And every time I say that, I'm like, "Are we gonna do? Is this really gonna be pro wrestling? What's going on here?"
oh
But
no,
he
we get Henry will break it down. We get the pep talk of pep talks
yeah,
here.
we so somehow Mike goes, somehow you're going to instill fear, And he basically says, imagine that if you lose when you're doing the weigh-in, you have to look through your opponent. But you have to imagine that if you lose, your girl has to go home with him if you lose. Which, as Cal would say, she's not my girl. But have that show in your eyes is what Mike says to him. And he goes, do it right, they sometimes pee themselves.
Incredible.
But then
mind you, this is John Cena delivering these lines just as John Cena-like as possible.
But there's one more thing that Mike imparts to Cal. And what is that, Mike?
Mike goes, one more thing. You gotta weigh in naked. It's uncomfortable, but it makes them uncomfortable. And that's exactly what Cal does.
It shows you're proud.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Cal does. And we see his bare ass cheeks after he weighs in. I feel like we actually don't see the other wrestlers react as much as you would expect.
We see the opponent react a little bit. And
yeah.
And somewhere you can just imagine that Luli is just going, that's America's Heine.
Oh, 100%. That's, yeah. She somehow was probably in the locker room at that point. She found her way in. But, the pep talk worked because Mike finally, or rather Cal, finally gets his first win. And we see that Mike is starting to watch. He's hiding in the stairways because, of course, you can't see him. But he wants to support his brother. Not quite ready to show his face. But yeah, so Cal gets the win. And then from there,
it's just, we sort of get a little, but like Cal's even surprised that he gets the win.
Yeah.
And before the fight, or before the match, Mike says, listen to music gets into your soul. And thanks to Soundhound, I discovered that song was called Letters from the Sky by a band named Civil Twilight, which came out right before this movie. I was surprised it wasn't opera, because that's cognitive. It doesn't match up with the rest of the movie, but who's keeping track of things, really? But Mike walks away before anybody can see that he was there, and Danny Glover is in the stands cheering Cal on, and Mike, before he leaves, finds his record, his wrestling record brick in the high school, and he looks at it nostalgically. And then we get a montage, because Cal starts winning, and Mike has a job. The brothers are getting it done. And Cal's one male friend shows up again, gives him a small congratulatory hug. And that's about it.
Literally the most throwaway character in the entire film. Although he has a nice little moment towards the end. But yeah, so then so Cal, eventually at one point Cal and Luli are talking about, I guess, the upcoming dance or prom or ball or whatever's happening. And she's like, what are you wearing? And she's like, I'm making it myself. He's like, is it legal? He's like, you're not still showing boobs, are you? And just kind of silly back and forth between the two of them.
Oh, you almost don't forget, Cal really wants to know a move called the reverse cradle from Mike. He is asking when they're training that, you gotta teach me the reverse cradle. And Mike's like, you're not ready. He's like, barely like Jedi training stuff here. You're not ready.
Very much. Yeah, and speaking of training, so yeah, we get a quick chat between Cal and Sharon. There's a quick lie in there. She's like, practice ends at 4:30. What are you doing all that extra time? So she doesn't know that Cal's spending all this time with Mike yet. So, that's hinted at. And then Cal meets one of Mike's buddies for some additional training. I forget the guy's name.
Theo Henderson. He's a
Theo.
Cal, Mike, I had to write this down. He's a big-time tiny wrestler, which,
yes,
don't be confused here. He is not Hornswoggle. He is just somebody who is not as tall as John Cena, which to Mike Chetley, that means he is tiny.
Yeah, and exactly. And, we get another little there's so many training montages in this film, but this was one of my favorites because now we see the three of them training together. And there's a great scene where Cal and Theo are like doing these alternating jumps over Mike while Mike is doing push-ups. And it's just it's like almost looked like it was meant to be comical, but they're all training. So we get Luli and Sharon together, the big girls moment. Which is kind of nice. She, of course, Luli, just with some banger lines. She's like, this is kind of like Extreme Makeover minus the boob job. But it ultimately ends up being a really sweet scene. Sharon's imparting some good wisdom. Don't give them the whole package. Give them, tease them a little bit. Let yourself be chased. Don't be the one chasing.
Luli asks Sharon, when did you get your first kiss? And Sharon goes, when I was 36. And then Luli like almost loses it, going, oh
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
but it's and then she goes no, and Lily says was it with Cal's father? She goes no, but it made Cal's father notice. So it's basically like play these boys against each other is almost the message
Yeah.
here, but not really, as we'll soon realize.
Yes. So oh boy.
But
So
before we
it's
get there, Mike sort of teaches Cal about the reverse cradle because it's a fake out. It's a fake
yes.
out pinning maneuver. But we get to prom, and Cal and Louie walk in, and there's no big reveal for the dress. It's just like a nice, like, black, a little shininess, silver to it. But yeah, it's a dress.
Yeah. And so yeah, so Cal and Lily show up to the dance together, and lo and behold, there's Billy just being his dickish self, and he's basically asking Lily for a show. She's like, how come like I feel like everyone's seen your boobs except for me, and he literally starts unzipping the back of her dress. Cal immediately hits him. They get the hell out. Um, so while that's happening, Mike makes a very unwise choice.
And we say while that's happening a lot here because this movie is a lot of like very small scenes. I sort of want to point that out. It's like you could have had some, but for some reason, no. Everything has to be jump cuts back and forth. It's
A lot
almost
of
like
parallel, yeah, a lot of parallel storytelling.
very much WWE production. A lot of jump cuts. Um, but Mike's at his favorite watering hole, the St. Rose Tavern that we saw him in earlier, where we got into the fight, and but that's just for a brief second. We cut back, and Lily says, "Why does stuff like this always happen to me?" And Cal says pretty much the exactly wrong thing to say here. He goes, "Because you're Luli, you bring it on yourself." I was like, I wanted somebody to like slap
Yeah,
Cal in the face because that's not a
that
good.
was kind of a jerk move, and then but that somehow segues into them having a sweet little chat, and then they hug, and then eventually they kiss, which was fine. It was innocent and sweet, but I never really bought that Cal was into Luli like that, so it felt a little random. The kiss felt a little forced, but you know,
Yeah,
it's this is legendary. There's much bigger things to criticize in this film,
in a
but
way, it
that
almost felt like the fight with Barrow made Cal just a little more like emotional, and that's what brought his
yeah,
blood up to make a kiss. Like because
100%.
at one point Sharon asks him, "You got to explain to me why wrestling someday. You got to explain to me," and it's sort of like, just watch your son and the emotional like adrenaline that he gets out of all this. Come on.
hmm
But Mike goes to the bar. The bartender, who plays an important role in the film,
hmm
says, "Hey, Mike, it's been a while." Sort of politely eyes him up and down, and I mean, how couldn't you? Come on. But Big Bald Beard is back and calls somebody on his little flip phone, and
Yeah, so
Mike
this
is staring at his beer. And what happens when Mike is staring at his beer?
Oh, so I forget the exact sequence of events, but
He puts it down. He just decides, "I'm not
he's
drinking tonight."
like, yeah, he's like, you know what? I know what happened last time. I don't need to do this. He decides to leave the bar, but just as he leaves, the bald guy's two cronies are right outside, and then the bald guy's right behind him. He's like, we don't have to do this. And he's like, you're not. They're like, you're not getting away this time. So a fight ensues, and again, even in a 3-on-1, Mike is kicking ass. He's dodging, he's reversing. He throws one dude through a glass door. Um, he pretty much takes out the bald guy and one of his friends. But just as he's emerging victorious, one of the other guys hits him with like a steel pipe or something. He knocks
Yeah,
him out
I
somehow.
rewound it like 3 times. You can't tell what it is except for the fact it was lengthy and metallic. That's all I could figure out. And then
Yeah.
cut, jump, smash, cut to Cal training on his own. Montage again.
Yeah, so yeah, Cal has to train on his own. We have we see Mike in jail, which John Cena in an orange jail jumpsuit is such a comical sight because his muscles are just so large, and the jumpsuit really accentuates that. So Cal and Sharon are talking about it, and then
But how much
because
time did they have
Sharon,
to process him? Shouldn't he have like? Wouldn't he just be in a holding cell? Like there's some jumps here that are a little.
it doesn't make sense. So Cal and Sharon are talking about what happened. Cal reveals that they've been training together all month. Sharon's super upset that Cal never said anything, obviously. Um, and Sharon's kind of explaining why Mike is the way he is, and he kind of blames himself for Mac's death, which I think was because he wasn't able to pull him out of the car in time or something of that nature.
No,
So
basically, his Mike shot out of the car and or was ejected from the car, and Mac wasn't.
something like that.
Yeah,
He has real
but
survivor's guilt
yeah,
going on.
and Sharon had begged them not to go.
Yeah,
Why are you doing this? You don't need to, because Mike's gonna beat the crap out of this guy no matter what. But
yeah,
Mac knew that, but Mike was like, "But Dad, you always say never turn down, like always take advantage of your opportunities to scout the opponents." And it's like, oh, okay.
yeah. So Mike. So we learn Mike's kind of always carrying that. So yeah, we're Cal's getting ready for the big championships. I think over in Tulsa. And pretty important scene. Sharon comes to see Mike in jail. So this is the first time they're seeing each other in years. Again, I just noted how funny John Cena looks in that jumpsuit. But Sharon uh mentions that she was able to pull some strings. Again, the callbacks in this film. She was able to pull some strings thanks to that ADA that she dated. So
And
they're gonna
yeah, the waitress verifies everything about Mike not drinking a drop. He put down the beer, like, and then it was all his self defense. So, but she goes, Cal needs you, Mike. And then
yeah.
she gives that emotional "I want my son back" speech. The reason why you cast Patricia Clarkson in this role, really, the reason why you get a probable award winner for this movie.
Yeah, I want my son back, but I still don't know how. So that Mike is free. We cut to the tournament. We see that Cal's doing pretty damn well. He's winning. Hustle, Loyalty, Respect is playing in the background. I don't know if it's the same exact song that John Cena has used at some point, but it's playing in the background. I noted here, and it comes back in a big way later on. And Sharon tells Mike that Cal really needs him there, and they have a nice little moment where they kind of acknowledge how screwed up their relationship is and how much there is to repair. But it's like, we got to get through this. We got to make this work, especially for Cal.
And it's just like Luli is incredibly mic'd up as always in this movie. Um, it's just like very much like they're like, sorry, I live in New York. New York is a loud city. This is not a production studio, unfortunately. I'm assuming y'all can hear the thing in the back. But Cal's doing well. Cal is like, but Cal runs into Red in a moment of panic when he goes back to the next day of the fights.
Yes. So yeah. So Cal kind of has one final pep talk with Red. Cal tries to Cal tries to tell Red that like he's done wrestling and that he doesn't want it. And Red kind of sees through all that. And he has a really great motivational line. He says, "No one's asking you to win, Cal. Just don't quit." And yeah, then there's a pretty pivotal moment where Cal's in another match. He's having a rough time. He's not doing so great. But then in comes Mike. Mike finally shows up. He comes to watch. He sits in the crowd. He's letting himself be seen. And Cal gets the takedown and wins the match. And actually, his opponent gets a little hurt for a second, which felt like a rant. In hindsight, I don't know what was the point of that scene was that Cal's opponent got injured here. But anyway, the long story short is that Mike shows up for Cal. Cal gets motivated by that. Cal wins.
It was like it wasn't. I almost think the point was like it wasn't not a clean win, but like there was like like maybe show Cal's strength to put Cal over, basically make
Mm-hmm.
Cal look strong. I guess is the way.
Yeah, I think that was part. I think that was part of it. And so I think at this point, Cal's kind of getting ready for his finals match. Mike Mike catches up with the coach. He's gonna help coach the final match. And
Cal had won that last match, which was a move that not even Mike taught him. It was a guillotine, which
yeah,
so Cal's been learning on his own. We're showing some independence from Cal, and
yes,
the thing is, it's still now right around here is where I notice that Mike Chetley doesn't seem like Mike Chetley as much anymore. Now we're basically sort of seeing him as sort of later film era John Cena, just sort of being like John Cena, and
he's
because
yeah.
he says just turn on some music. What are you listening to? And he goes opera. And Mike goes, "What?" And Cal goes, "It's like Italian." And Mike goes, "Who are you? Who are you?" Never mind. And just listen to it. And he walks away. And he's walking away. He goes, "Opera." And then
Fun little scene.
yeah, and a better scene happens when Mike and Sharon, no, Cal, yeah, Mike and Sharon are talking, and Lily walks up. And Mike, what happens?
So Lily shows up with this huge box for Cal, and she looks up at Mike, and she goes, "I want you to know you're everything Cal describes, only better looking." So just completely, she just has a thing for the Chetley boys. So she's just, acknowledging how good looking Mike is, as anyone should. John Cena, very beautiful man.
He's just a Chetley boy. Chetley boy.
And then, thank you, Henry, for that. Thank you.
Happy
Oh my
birthday,
goodness.
Mike. Happy
we
birthday.
need. Thank you. That's a great gift. Now we need the full MP3 of that. But she hands Mike this giant box as a gift for his final match. So Mike's in the Cal's in the locker room opening that gift, and then the most just mind-blowingly terrible, pointless, how did this get approved line of dialogue, because Cal's in the locker room getting ready to open his box. Theo shows up. Mind you, Theo is basically the one black person in this group. Theo shows up, and Cal's just like, "Hey, Shaquille O'Neal." And like, this movie,
Theo literally says that was terrible.
yes,
Like, he
speaking
calls him
for
on
all
it.
of us,
Yeah.
speaking for all of us in the audience,
Somewhere
it was just
Somewhere Red is very upset with Cal for saying that.
Yeah.
Like, what have I not trained you well? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, this movie wasn't great to begin with, but I don't know who on the writing team decided, like, all right, we need this random, just
It's like a
slightly
he's
racist.
short and he's not tall, and here's
Yeah, I think that was the joke.
no, that is what Cal thinks the joke is. But the joke is just like, he's a dumbass, I guess.
The timing of it just makes no sense. Anyway, as Theo said, that was terrible. But anyway, so Mike's opening his gift from Luli, and it's two gifts. The first one is a pump, which was amazing because obviously Mike's a catfisher, and he needed a new pump. And he was like, "Yeah, if you knew Luli, you'd understand how big a deal this is." But that wasn't it. What else was in that box, Henry?
It turns out the pump is actually just a part of the props, because Luli has basically gone to learn from all the greatest in set design and pyrotechnics. Like, AEW's barbed wire match could have learned something from Luli, because basically, first of all, there's new gear. They pull out this Bam Bam Bigelow Flames Guy Fieri looking hoodie / like drape thing that they put on, and it's got red jewel like rhinestones on it. Like, it's very okay, this is a thing, but it's very peculiar. And they basically, it's time to have the match start, and they walk in, and all of a sudden it's full pro wrestling mode, because the explosions go off, fire. I couldn't even tell what song it was, but it was like
Hustle, Loyalty, Respect was playing. So yeah, again, full WWE at this point. And again, that incredibly minor character, Donald, I think his name is, Cal's best friend. He's the one working the pyro. He's like, all right, we got to give this kid something. But yeah, this is when the movie just goes full pro wrestling, and Cal just has this epic entrance to his final match.
And it's like, but before the match starts, Cal and Mike have this moment, and it's a moment that really was thankfully there and happening and necessary, because without this moment, the concerns I had about what was going on with one of the characters in this movie were this moment alleviates a lot of concern, because they both recognize Danny Glover standing in the crowd, and Mike goes, "You know him?" And it turns out Red is actually, scrolls up through notes, Red was actually, if you remember, if you in that blink and you missed it moment, the friend of the family who made a very, because when Mike was, Harry Newman wrote a very nice quote earlier in the movie that was in the newspaper clipping that Cal was going through, and he is Harry Red Newman is the character's name, as IMDb taught me before I got to that part in the movie. And it just turns out he's family friend who knew their father, and like that's how it all works out. And it's like, okay, great. I'm like, thank God he's not a ghost. This entire time I
Yeah,
was expecting this to be full what's his face? The who's the golf caddy movie?
not Billy Madison, right?
No. Not that golf caddy. But golf. I think it was Jamie Foxx. Let me. No, I'm using the T search tool, Mike. That's my muscle memory. So I was trying to. But it was just this like.
Yeah, no, I had the same because we watched this together the first time last year, and we all were sitting there wondering like, God, is this going to be like their dad reincarnated? Is this going to be a ghost? Like, what kind of surreal nonsense they're trying to pull here?
The Legend of Bagger Vance when
There you go.
Will Smith, Matt Damon, and Charlize Theron movie. No.
Yeah,
Red is real, and basically Cal and Mike have their little moment, and then before we know it, the match is on, and Cal actually gets a moment as Mike realizes to try the reverse cradle. He actually goes for the pinning maneuver, and this gives you the wholesome moment of Sharon finally getting it, and like she's screaming during the match, "Squeeze it," which out of context doesn't really work. But then she yells, "Cal, come on, pin him!" And like everybody's enjoying it, and like Coach Tennant and Mike jump onto the mat practically, and they're looking closely at the shoulders on the mat. Is this guy going to take the 3-second tan, basically, is what they're wondering. And it turns out no decision or a time limit. It goes to the time limit, and the crowd goes quiet. And what happens?
Well, so it goes to decision because Cal is not able to get the pin, and Cal ends up losing by a few points by decision. So there's definitely a moment of disappointment. You see everyone kind of get deflated. Mike especially just kind of gets on his knees and looks down. But eventually, Cal walks off. Mike looks up, and they embrace. And he's still so clearly proud of his brother. And that's more or less our ending. We see that even though Mike didn't win, he had this great journey. Cal didn't win. He had this great journey, became a wrestler, and did pretty well. And then we get kind of just as the film opened, we get a kind of motivational outro from Red.
But like he got his family back together, and that's what he truly won. He won his reunited family, and that's what really matters. And this is when the crowd kind of gives, because like Cal has this earnest moment with he hugs his mom, and him and Mike hug, and he kisses Louie, and the crowd gives a standing ovation kind of to Cal.
Yeah,
really? Everybody cares that much about Cal?
That is weird when you think about it. I mean, I guess if you consider if this was the home crowd, and if these people knew
it was the away venue, I thought.
So it definitely makes no sense.
No. Also, I
could see a home crowd being like, all right, this scrawny kid could barely wrestle, and he made it to the finals.
No,
but
like it's weird, and it doesn't. And then like even Billy Barrow shows up and wants a fist bump.
Yeah.
And right in front of Louie, Cal, in the name of sportsmanship, I guess, does it, but not like half an hour or like 45 minutes earlier. He was like a giant D-bag to them at the prom or the dance. Like it doesn't.
He's being the bigger man. It doesn't make sense though. Yeah.
Yeah. But Red's narration pops back up because Red and Mac made a promise that if Mac wasn't going to be there, Red would help everybody get there along the way.
And that's exactly what Red did. And he drops a great piece of wisdom saying not all legends are about victory. Some are about struggle and basically the things you learn along the way. And it turns out that while Mac's wrestling performance wasn't legendary, his family counseling skills indeed were, because the band is all back together. We get a very brief, so we cut to credits and we get that like where are they now kind of text over image. It was oddly short, and it was something like, correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, it was like Cal went on to wrestle in 48 matches. Mike was in his corner for all of them.
He won Lily's X number of them, like...
Yeah, Lily's pump still works. Yeah. And I think that was it.
Which is I'm just going to say, referring to it like that is... They knew what they were doing, or at least I hope they did, because
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, this is legendary. The credits play, and I fast forwarded to the end of credits to make sure there wasn't a post credit scene because the legendary cinematic, the LCU, turns out it's not a
Yes.
thing. There won't be. Cal Chetley won't be back in Legendary 2, Too Legendary, Too Legendarier. Um, or wouldn't be the Clash of the Heinies would have been the sequel. Um,
Yeah.
but basically, yeah, this was the movie. And if we go back to our spreadsheet, which I will update our Twitter profile with soon, we can see that currently Cinephiles has two rated movies. Um, the Marine got 2.5 knuckle shuffles out of 5. 12 rounds got 3 knuckle shuffles out of 5. How many do you think Legendary deserves? Because I think we're in agreement on this one.
So it's interesting. Again, this is a movie we've watched before, and I think the first time we reviewed it, we were extremely down on it. I do think it's one of the lowest quality films in this entire filmography. But I didn't necessarily hate it the second time around. It did have this kind of wholesome, cheesy quality to it. I definitely felt like it was a little too long. I don't know if that's because I was rewatching it, but I feel like it could have just been a little tighter. I personally would give this either a 1.5 or potentially even two knuckles, but I'm curious to hear where you're at, Henry.
Yeah, no. I because a man once told me we shouldn't have ties when you're comparing things. Somebody once told me that they were very dead set against ties. I don't want to give it a 2.5. I don't think the Marine was a little
No.
bit more what it. The Marine got 2.5 and it was a little bit more confident in what it was. It was exactly what it, and this was a little too all over the place and a little confused about what it was trying to be at times and not always successful. So because I think I know just because I think I know where things are going in the future, I want to give this a 1.5 because here's the thing. The ratings sort of suggest would we or should you watch. And of the John Cena movies, I think I would give this the lowest of what we've seen.
Right, and we both know, and we'll get to this next week's episode, but I would say after Legendary, there's a significant bump in quality across most of these films.
We're
Um,
about to hit the bump, I believe. I don't think we're
yeah,
at the. I don't think like we don't have Malcolm Bivens guesting on this, so we're not at the bump just yet. But I
no, no, no,
do
no, no.
think I'll say this is a 1.5. I think this is what I would call the nadir of the Cena oeuvre. Um,
Yeah,
and
if
remember, we are not including stuff like uh, the Amy Schumer movie and the Tina Fey Amy Poehler movie because those are just cameos. We're
yeah,
we want to be talking about actually a lot of Cena. Like, unfortunately, he wasn't the main character in this, but he's a featured character in most of these movies. So I think 1.5 fits for this. Um,
yeah,
Mostly because I'd have a harder time recommending unless people are drunk or watching it with newly legal substances, depending on their state of location.
yeah.
This is the least enthusiastic of a recommendation I can give. Um, but it does show a different, it does continue a trend that 12 rounds started, in that John Cena is starting to get a little more attention from other bigger actors that are working with him. Last time we had Aidan Gillen
Aiden
from
Gillen.
Game of
Yep.
Thrones and The Wire. Now we have both Danny Glover and Patricia Clarkson. So, and next time we're gonna have a couple of other famous people who you might remember from some coming of age movies from the late '90s and early aughts. And
Yeah,
that
it's a reunion, if you will.
oh, that is because it's called The Reunion, where John Cena is Sam Cleary. And we're gonna be doing that on Saturday, June 5th, again at 1 o'clock. I think 1 o'clock. And we're gonna be doing that then because we're taking tomorrow off because, as we said earlier, tomorrow is Mike's birthday, and Mike's got a big day planned, big birthday boy day. Take that for yourself. And well, who knows? Maybe next time we might even talk about. No, we won't talk about Double or Nothing because that's what we're gonna watch tomorrow night. But stay tuned for the next episode of Cinephiles. We always have fun doing these, and as you might know, because if you're not watching this live, you're listening to it on podcast or YouTube. Check us out on those platforms. The podcatcher of your choice will have it because we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then YouTube as well. Just search Cinephiles, Cenaphiles, and yeah, that is the legendary story. Get your glasses of milk, folks, because this was a legendary day. That's the outro credits. Mike's going like, I don't know. You had some extra Monster Energy this morning, didn't you? But we will see you next time, and I will talk to you later.
Peace.